So you've come here today to find out how to size up. Well, the question that you need to ask first, have you earned the privilege to size up? Because it's not a right, it's a privilege. Not everybody is going to be able to size up, so to speak. Now, you're all going to be able to trade at a size where you're going to be able to make money and pay your bills and probably go on to have a pretty successful life. But there's quite a few of us out there that are never going to be able to trade with size, like size. That's something that you need to accept. There's certain types of people in the way that we're wired where you are going to be a lot more comfortable with risk and risking that amount of money. See, we as people, as humans, we have a really strange emotional attachment to money. It's pretty deep-seated, and especially when it comes to trading. Now, I'm going to give you an analogy and something that I talk about quite often. Think about this. When you go into, like, how many of you have went to the 7-Eleven or some corner store and spent $100 or $150 on like fuck books, candy, and Slurpees? It happens all the time. Now, does your stomach turn when you spend $100, or maybe you go out for dinner and you spend $200? Okay, nothing happens, no emotional whatever. There's no emotional response to it. Your body doesn't like recoil in horror that you just spent $100 or $200 on nonsense. But when you're in a trade, what happens when you take a $100 or $200 loss? Does your stomach turn? Does it make you mad? If the answer is yes, then you're not ready to size up yet. You have a deep-seated emotional attachment to money. So how do we get rid of that? Well, it takes time. That's number one. It's going to take a lot of time. There's a lot of self-work that we have to do. For any of you that have watched any of my other videos, you know that self-work is something that is what I believe is super important as a trader. So one of the ways to start getting over that is to size up slowly. It is basically in the same terms as throwing a frog in a boiling pot of water. He's going to jump out, right? He's going to freak out and jump out. But if you put a frog inside of a pot that's cold, turn on the burner, and it's a slow rise, he'll stay in there. Now, I know that seems like that would be a bad idea, but just try and think about it like that. Now, do we want to be a frog in a boiling pot of water? Nice and slow boil? No, that's not good in any world, but it's the example I gave you. So hear me out. Now, because the response to pain was slow and over time and a gradual increase, he was able to handle it. And that's what I'm getting at. That's what it boils down to. No pun intended. So when we size up, we need to do it slow. Because as we size up, not only will our profits increase, but our losses will increase as well. So let's say you start with, I don't know, one contract or 100 shares. That loss is going to be very minimal. Even a bad loss, so to speak, percentage-wise or points per share-wise, would be 20 or 30 cents per share, right? And that's what, 20 or 30 bucks. Not a big deal, not a big loss, right? You can handle that. Now, as you increase, you go to 200. Now that $20 or $30 loss becomes 60, 80. So once you hit that point where you are getting uncomfortable with that loss, hold there, just below that. Let's say that number is at 375 shares, right? Or 4 contracts. Go to 3. Or go to 300 shares or 350 shares. Just get under that mark to where you are comfortable. Hold it there for a while. See, a lot of people are in a rush, and the reason why they rush is because they are financially strapped. Everybody is nowadays. I understand that. I get that. But this isn't a game that you can pressure or bully yourself into accepting. It's going to take time. See, we all want to buy those nice things, and I've seen it a lot before where people will buy things that they haven't earned yet. I'll tell you a quick story. I was going to the US, I was going to LA, and there were some people ahead of me. It was 3 people from the UK. You may ask how I knew that. Well, pretty thick accents. And each and every one of them had on a Rolex, which is cool. I'm into watches too, okay? But hear me out. So they had a whole bunch of bags, and in their bags, they were overpacked. They were way overweight. Now, instead of paying the 25 or 50 bucks, they started holding up everybody in line. Now, I get that if it's just a quick move into your carry-on, you can move some things around. It wasn't. It was a disastrous shit show is what it was. What I'm getting at is when you're wearing a piece that's thousands of dollars on your wrist and you can't afford that 20 or 30 or 40 bucks to pay for your extra luggage, it seems you probably shouldn't be wearing that. That's just a guess. Now, I could be wrong about that, right? Some people will probably disagree with me in the comment section saying, oh, well, they're just trying to save money. I get that, but you got to see where I'm coming from as well in this example. There's a lot of people that live way beyond their means, and that's an issue. When I first started trading and when I gained my consistency and I was paying my bills, and I was actually even doing more than that. Like I was making money. I made more money than I was making. Basically, I replaced and then some my previous job as a contract welder. Now remember, contract welder in Canada, especially in Alberta, you're making good money. You're making as much as a doctor or a lawyer. So I replaced that income. I didn't buy a damn thing for a long time. It took me 4 years of consistency before I bought my first watch, something that I've always wanted. And I tell you, the response to that was amazing, like my response to that, because I worked for it and I actually earned it. I got to a point where that amount of money that I spent on that piece, I didn't miss at all. No emotional response whatsoever. And that's where you need to get. A lot of people want to feel like the big shot, right? And they spend a lot of money damaging themselves, damaging their mentality, putting pressure and stress on themselves. And for what? So then they can look like they have money. I've noticed, especially doing a lot of traveling, it's generally the ones that look like they have money. Those are the ones that don't have a fucking dime. Don't be that guy. And this all ties into trading with how you're looking at your trading account and how much money you're making. We have to earn it, folks. So here's some ways that I'm going to get into now where we can start feeling more accomplished. So number one, you got to set goals. I'm not a huge advocate of setting these types of goals, but I think in this example, I think it works. So if you make X amount on the year, not on a month. Remember, this is the long game, folks, and there's going to be a video coming out very shortly about the long game. A lot of people are just they think way too short term, and they think a really good week as a trader should know you going out and celebrating. No, that's only a week. This is really different than a regular 9-to-5 job, right? Everything is about the long game. It's not about the day, like daily P&L. Don't get me going with that. That doesn't mean anything. Weekly P&L, not really. That week is a very small sample size, very small pool size. The month, maybe. More so the quarter. So per quarter, if you do well, that's okay, right? But when somebody asks you the question, how much money do you make on the year? Now, I'm not talking about trading. I'm just talking about like in a regular job. I mean, we all have these weirdos coming up to you and they ask you those types of questions, which isn't a question to ask. But I'm sure we've all been asked. How much money do you make at your job? Like, what do you get paid? What do you tell them? $11.75 an hour? $1,500 a week? Whatever it is? No, you tell them what you make on the year. So why is there a weird disconnect when it comes to trading? People will say, I make $1,000 a day. The fuck does that mean? You make $1,000 a day. Well, it's an average. Does it average out to that? Or is that just what you made this week? You made $1,000 a day every day this week. You see what I'm saying? It's the long game. So you can start setting little goals for yourself. If you make X amount on the year, wait for it. Wait for that whole year. I will then treat myself to that, whatever it is. See, over the years, what I've done with my money, instead of, spending it on things, shiny things, although I do have quite a few shiny things, but I've done pretty well. But what I do now is every year I have to buy myself a certain amount of properties, whether it be houses or just bare land. Now, I'm a huge fan of bare land. Love that. So that's what I treat myself to. Now, I buy land not only just as investment. I buy it because I can then let my family and friends use it for hunting or fishing or camping or whatever. Maybe there's some nice trails on that we can use in the summertime. Or I buy land for my cattle and my horses to graze on. I get fulfillment out of that. I enjoy that. Money shouldn't just buy you things, it should buy you value. It should bring value to your life. So there's that. Setting those goals. Now, I'm not saying at the beginning you're going to be able to just go out and buy land and this and that. I'm not saying that. Maybe start off small, like something like, I don't know, maybe you and the wife, you take you and the wife on a nice trip at the end of the year, not because you've had a good week. Okay? Number 2, start becoming fully paid off. And that actually should have been number 1. That's the most important thing. Every chance you get, pay off bills. Get financially free. Because that's what this is about, right? Like, if I were to ask each and every one of you candidly, why are you getting into this? After you answer to make money, of course. I get that. Everyone says that when they're really, really new to trading. But when you look at the deeper reason why we get into this, it's to be financially free. We don't want to think about money anymore. I don't know about you, but before I started trading, that's all I would think about. I would think about paying my bills and do I have enough money? And if I don't have enough money, how am I going to keep my cell phone on? If my cell phone gets cut off, I'm not going to be able to pick up the phone for that next contract. I'm fucked. And it was just a constant circle and cycle of stress. And I never wanted to feel that way again. So I did everything in my power in order to get that. And that's why I'm here. So becoming financially free. So how do you do that? Well, you don't need to wait for the end of the year to do something like this. Maybe every month or every quarter, set aside a certain amount to start paying off that mortgage, paying off those credit cards, paying off those old bills, maybe an old student loan, whatever it is. Start paying that shit off. Get rid of it. Those are chains. You're handcuffed to that stuff, guys. And there's no greater feeling than not owing anybody a dime. Any banks, any government, anything. I mean, I could talk for hours about that shit. I love that. That's the best feeling in the world, guys. The last thing that you can do to start preparing yourself for actual success and earning the right or the privilege to size up, don't buy that expensive shit right now. Don't do it. Just wait. Now, I'm not trying to be your dad. I'm just talking from personal experience. I've been down that road where you start making an obscene amount of money and you buy things that, well, you never had. And now you can afford those things. But at that time, did I have everything else in place? Maybe not. Maybe I didn't. I should have set up my family first, making sure that my family will always be taken care of. I could drop tomorrow and every single person in my family will be taken care of. And that's a good feeling. So don't buy those expensive things right now. Wait for it. Because if you wait for it, it becomes way more fulfilling after. If you truly want that. Again, I can bring it back to those people standing in the lineup. Everyone had, a minimum of a $10,000 watch on. But yet they can't afford a few extra bucks. There's a lot of people out there living like that right now, guys. It's becoming more and more. And I think, not to stray off too much, but the reason is because of the pressure from social media. And a lot of people out there are like, I don't feel pressure from social media. You do. Everybody does. It's being forced upon us. You may not see it, but it's there. So just being comfortable and fine with what you have and being content is one of the most important points. If you can be content with very little, and you're just content overall, that's what keeps us level. There's a lot of people that just aren't level anymore. I think it's the new mental illness. Just hasn't been diagnosed yet. It will, and I'm sure they'll have a pill for it soon. But that's something that I think we all should work for and strive for. It's just being content, guys. Like, all joking aside, it's important. Because not only is that going to help you in your life, but as a trader, being content is everything. One of the biggest issues that I see with people sizing is they are not content. So what do? They place another trade. They take another trade. Well, you just made enough to pay your bills on the day, and now you're not thinking about the risk. You're only thinking about the reward. So what happens? You fuck up. You went red on the day. You committed the cardinal sin in trading. You turned that beautiful green trade red, and now you're red on the day. Be content with what you have. If you have enough to pay your bills on the day, walk away. There's been lots of times where I've taken trades where it's not enough, so to speak. But you'll see when I post on my recaps, there's some days where my P&L is real small. I couldn't be happier. I am just as happy with that than I am with a monster day because I'm content. So I hope this helps you guys with earning the privilege to size up, and it gives you a little perspective. Adios.